Just gonna jump on with the glass in your mouth, huh?
Huh?
Just ain't even think about the people on the camera.
Oh, they understand. I'm sure they understand. I've been at work. It's been a long day. Left at 8, got back home at 7:30.
That's a normal.
I went to work for 8. I know where they go. I'm not here right now.
Yeah, you need to get here because you just left. You ain't leave. You went to work at 8. You ain't leave here till 8:45, so you ain't go to work at 8.
I went to work at 9.
Yeah, that work.
Got back here at 7:30.
Good evening.
An hour and a half from a 12 hour.
Did you just cut me off?
My bad. Sure I did. Hey y'all. How y'all doing? Good evening. This is Passing for Perfect with Corey and Kynisha, and I'm Kynisha. And that is
Corey. And
just because your name is first don't mean you always have to open it up.
Y'all see what time? Y'all already see where it's going, huh? We ain't even got started yet. Y'all see where this night going. Put it down. Don't pick it up now. Time. Welcome back. It's been a while. It's been a couple of weeks. Let me not say a while, but between birthdays and getting kids back to school and all that, we said let's take a little break. These people probably tired of looking at us, listening to us around. Y'all tired of listening to us and looking at us around.
We don't be rambling. I mean, we do go off the rails a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, yes, you do. You do.
Me?
Yes. I want to welcome y'all to part 2 of our conversation because we had to do 2 parts because we never actually got to the second part. So if you didn't see the last show, it's up on YouTube. You can go back and watch it on YouTube. And we were discussing insecurities in relationships or bringing insecurities insecurities in the new relationships, how those insecurities come from most often childhood trauma. And over the last couple of weeks, we've been seeing some things in the world and in life and in people that we know that their childhood traumas have created some insecurities and some mental dysfunction. But that's not what we're here to talk about. What we're going to talk about today, we are going to discuss roles in relationships, more specifically roles in marriage. In marriages. If your relationship is heading towards marriage or if you're engaged,
this is for you.
This is for you. I guess you would start incorporating some of these things in your relationship early.
Maybe some of this could help you decide whether you should take that final step.
If you really want to have a role in a marriage. Now, with this being said, this is a disclaimer.
We are not the FDA. What we say tonight is not law.
Yeah.
We're not anybody's psychological book, no psychological science.
It's just our thoughts, our experiences,
real life experience.
And each relationship is its own individual snowflake. So as I always say, there is a foundation for marriage. So marriage is two people coming together to become one to basically build a village.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Need a marriage village too, not just for kids.
So it's basically two people coming together as one with like-mindedness, like goals, similar aspirations. Most times these people are opposites. Most couples are opposites because it's a yin. It should be a yin and a yang. It should be a flow of where you weak, I'm strong. Where you're strong, I'm weak. Vice versa, so forth and so on. So in relationships, it should be balanced. They should balance each other.
Absolutely.
All right. So
if you're married, this is for you as well. I'm sorry if we, made it sound like this is not relevant to marriage. It's definitely relevant to your marriage and relevant for sure to people who have not yet gotten married because people who are married are in a different type of position than those who have not yet gotten married. We're married. Mm-hmm. Therefore, anything we learn or any roles we have flipped, we got to work through that. For the people who are not yet married, you still have a choice in the situation, whereas you can talk to one another and say, you know, how do you feel about this or that? What if I was this? What if you were that? And see if you can deal with it or not. It's not the time to, you don't want to get married and then it's like, wait, I didn't sign up for that. I'm not doing that, you know? So y'all need to have a clear understanding of roles, and everybody plays a role. Like women get offended a lot because they think that, submission is this horrible thing and it's a bad thing to be submissive, and that playing your role is you being submissive. That is not the case. None of that is true. Submission is not hard. Submission is not a slap in the face. And also, being a wife doesn't mean your role is to be this little whimpering puppy. That is not, what the case is. So, we want to kind of talk about that, try to dispel some of the stuff that people really, really have crossed when it comes to certain words are just triggers for people. Like the word submissive is a trigger for a lot of women.
And the word submissive is a two-way street. A lot of people like to pull that scripture out of the Bible and just try to hold on to that one line. You know, like they only hold on to that wives be submissive to your own husband. Don't be being submissive to somebody else's husband or some other nigga, whatever. Yeah, it's submissive to your own husband is the actual part of the verse. We can pull up the whole thing, but there are verses before and after that. So people tend to just pull that piece and just run with it, especially me. Um, so that's the submission is both ways, because there's a part that says men submit unto your wives as Christ submitted unto the church. All that is all a part of that. Right. So it's not just about the woman being submissive. It's a two-way street. Also in saying that, Rose, this is 2021, y'all. This isn't 201 BC, 21 BC. Some things have changed as a society. The way the structure of the world is different than when these books were written. So there are some things that are different. Like, so you have to learn to use that, but also adapt to the times. Like,
we have some cavemen.
You still
still in the world.
And I'm gonna say this. Let me say this. This has always been a saying, and I always say this. I tell people this all the time. Your role in your marriage is based on your marriage and the person you're with. It's not based on some westernized example of what marriage should be. Because if we were using examples of marriage from the Bible, a lot of people had multiple wives. Like there were things. The wives were always at home. They weren't working wives. Women weren't working. It's a lot of things now that are different then. The premise of marriage back then was like it was a status thing. Like I sold my wife, my daughter off to this man for land, power, prestige, whatever. We use this to build or grow the connection of families. Like you've all seen movies and shows where a child was promised to a kingdom, a daughter was promised to a king or queen to bring those families together to end war.
Watch Game of Thrones if you haven't.
Yeah. And what's the other one, y'all? Don't they do that in Bridgerton or whatever? Yes, Bridgerton. Yeah. So things were different. And we have to use the common sense that God gave us in some of this. But like I was saying, this one thing still holds true. If y'all get kicked out of their house, it's the man's fault. If those lights are off in the house, it's the man's fault. That's how it's viewed. If their house is dirty or nasty and those kids are bad and out of order, it's the wife's fault. And that's just the way people view it. Not saying it's true, but it's still the way it's being viewed.
Yeah.
So
everybody mama done told them, you ain't walking up behind me looking like that.
Right.
No father ever has said it.
Never. Never.
No father ever has said it.
So we have to take those things in consideration. So with that being said, I'm gonna go with you first. I'm gonna ask you this question. And I'm asking it to everybody if you're on the live and you want to answer. What do you think the role is, your role is as a wife?
As a wife or just in this marriage?
As a wife in general. Like we're not going to do specific, just stick to us.
Okay. So as a wife, not a mother, but as a wife, I believe it is our role, first of all, kind of sort of still as a mother, but to be nurturing, to uplift, to cover. And when I say cover, I mean looking out for your spouse by way of what they're not paying attention to, you are. Bringing things to their attention that they may not be seeing, that you see. So that's what I mean by covering. To give them peace, to not make every day a hectic day because of whatever issues I may be having, to remember that men are absolutely, if you're in a relationship in male-female relation marriage, men are absolutely different than women. So to keep in mind that as a wife, I cannot expect him to feel what I'm feeling. So it's about open communication, letting him know where I am. As a wife, I feel like we need to make sure we are constantly communicating very well where we are, what we're thinking, what we're feeling, all of that stuff. Not automatically thinking in your head, as so many of us mistakenly do, that they just should know because they don't know. And they're not mind readers. And we don't think the same. So we should be, I think, the better communicator. I do feel like it is our duty to make the house a home uh, by way of making the house somewhere he wants to come home to. Not just the building, but the atmosphere. When he walks through the door, it should be something inviting to him to be happy to be in that place. Not the atmosphere where he's like, damn it, I should have stayed at work. So just generally off the top of my head, those are the things I can think of.
Yeah, just generally, she went in generally, just off the top of her head. Anyway,
there are other things.
Okay.
Probably the most important part. Sex. So it shouldn't be a no. Sex should never be, to me, as a wife, I am to never say no to him. I'm never to reject him as when sex is asked for or propositioned or anything like that. I can delay it, but I will not say no. If I ain't feeling well, I'm gonna say I'm not feeling well. I'm just not feeling well. I cannot do it tonight. But it will never be no, you cannot.
Okay. And with her saying that about the last part about the sex, no, you cannot. I'm gonna prime y'all for next week. Why I got a second. Next week we're going to discuss. This came from inbox on Facebook or Facebook inbox. A suggestion. We're going to discuss sex and how two things: church and the male dominance in the Western society has dominated thoughts on sex. So yeah, that's next week. We ain't talking. We're gonna talk about. We're gonna go deep on that this week.
So this week with my thought process of what a wife is, what's your response? Or is there something else you wanted to
Yeah, I think
get
that's.
out of there?
I think that was valid. That was sufficient. That in the broad sense of it, that
Yeah.
was that was it. Now, male, where I was a little bit simpler because I always say men. How it goes? Men are from Mars, women from Venus, or the other way around. Yeah, that part there. Totally different, totally opposite. Once again, the balance in society. Most of what she said was emotional. It was mostly some emotional support. It was mostly supportive input into the marriage. Men, primarily protection, security, comfort. Um, Same thing holds true for the sex. Excuse me, when it's rare, yeah, we're gonna be turning it down anyway. But
Okay.
if we have to, we're not actually saying no, just pushing it back a little bit. We be tired too. So for the men, that's you are supposed to be the strong one, the support, the rock, the logic in this. You know what I'm saying? So men are mostly the logic, women are mostly the emotion when it comes to a marriage, a relationship. Yeah, that's how we're wired. But because we're wired that way, doesn't necessarily mean that based on the way we're wired, that dictates in the house roles,
Right.
how things are done, how you interact, because if you listen to that, you would think that saying that would be like saying women would be more secretarial in the household, and the men would be more CEO-ish, I guess you would say. But our house doesn't function like that per
Most
se,
houses don't.
and most houses don't. So when you're trying to do roles, don't live into what society the roles that society have inputted for a marriage. The roles in your marriage should be based on the strengths and weaknesses of the two people in the house. Period. There should be no ands, ifs, or buts about this because that's where the blending and the balance comes in.
I'm gonna say this out the gate. If you're in a relationship with somebody who already says what the roles of the relationship should be, you need to run away.
I'm not gonna say run away.
Run away. Run away. Run away.
Running the people away?
Because humans by nature, it is hard to change certain things that are inbred in them. Some people grew up a certain way and they just feel like that's the way it's supposed to be. Some people grew up in a certain structure in their household and they think, as a man, this is what I'm supposed to do. And as a woman, this is what I'm supposed to do. And if you are dealing with that type of person and you think they're going to change that or that they can change that or whatever the case, unless they're showing you actual signs of changing that, outside of just saying, yeah, well, we'll talk about, that's going to be a problem. Anybody that's already set in their mind what a man or woman or whatever roles are supposed to be, that is a problem, and it is hard to weed out. That it is best that they find the other half of their thought process, because you cannot take what you saw as a child, what you saw as a teenager, whatever it is, you can't take that precept and bring it over into this relationship with me. We're learning each other, we're getting to know each other. You're just now coming to me. So how are you gonna come to me with this precept you already have? So that's why I say that. If you already have this predetermined notion of what the role should be, you need to get with somebody else who has the other side, the other half of that predetermined notion, so y'all can make this thing work. You need not walk up on nobody else who's come into a relationship and feel like I'm getting into a relationship with you. Therefore, this relationship needs to be based on me and you, not preset thought process.
I agree, and then I'm like, well, I don't know, because the whole marriage
I
premise.
want you to kill this voice you just had. Go ahead.
That was my
Don't.
It's such a bully. Um, the I made me lose my thought. You should let me keep my voice. Um, the whole premise of what you think marriage is based on what you've seen. So you already come in with everybody comes in with a predetermined
But
notion.
I'm speaking of the person who is unable to deter from that.
But you don't know that until y'all start having those conversations.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't just say automatically because they think this when y'all first.
No. This is somebody who's unwilling to deter.
Okay, I say that for it. I don't think you put this.
Someone who is unwilling to deter from that. Everybody has a kind of a thought of what they would like, but being that every relationship, as he has said before, is like a snowflake, like a fingerprint. Every relationship is different. I don't care what your mama did. I ain't the one to do it.
Or what your daddy
I don't
did.
care what your daddy did. He ain't. That's not gonna happen.
If that's once again, here we go back with these childhood traumas.
Yeah.
Because what sometimes dads, you should be showing your daughters and sons what a functional marriage relationship, male female encounter should be. You should be showing a functional relationship, what a man wife, how they should engage. You should be showing it. But sometimes as men we do too much, and as women we do too much when it comes to our sons and daughters, to where they have this unrealistic expectation of what their mate should be like.
Yeah.
Like you should expect something. I'm not saying if your daddy was hardworking, took care of the house, cut the grass, washed the cars, did all that, fixed everything around the house. I'm not saying you just automatically go and marry a bum. But you have to realize that not every man is not going to be your daddy. You're looking for a husband, not a dad. So the part that you should pull from that is hardworking, supports his wife, takes care of his wife, and supports the family, the home. How he does it shouldn't be exactly how your father did.
Right.
But in most cases, most women do marry someone who reminds them of their father. Most men marry someone who reminds them of their mother, has some motherly characteristics, but it shouldn't be a carbon copy. Because you don't know everything that your dad did or your mother did. Yeah. You don't see all this.
Right.
So
it's really
living
hard.
in that fairy tale is kind of
really hard.
Is kind of foolish. And because you don't have these conversations in advance as a culture, as a culture, we don't have these conversations. Then people run. Then you end up with daddy and mama issues. You end up with daddy's girls and mama's boys who mamas are overbearing into the relationship with the husband and wife or fiance, or the father is overbearing when it comes to his son-in-law.
So since that is coming up, let me break in here and do this. Uh, the question I always see this thing where they say, so who comes first? Mama, daughter, wife. And I don't know, you haven't seen that on Facebook, any things? Yes. Mama, daughter, wife. Who comes first? And I'm like, what? Like, how is that even a question? Your wife.
It's a question because of the structure and the mentality that's being created in these dysfunctional families.
Your wife, your husband,
my king
comes first.
My young king.
No.
Yeah, my young queen.
No.
My 6-year-old who's the man of the house.
No.
The
And again, no.
10-year-old who's the woman of the house, and
it's
all
like
of this.
These are the roles. These are the things that, you know, as a husband and wife or whatever your structure is. And when we speak in as in us husband and wife. But the thing is that what you got to understand is that there are structures that should not be limited. There are structures of the marriage or structures roles in the relationship that should never be degraded or downgraded. Your wife, your husband, or compromise. Your spouse should always be number one. Period. Somebody posted something the other day. It was a little TikTok where the girl was saying she feeds her husband first before she feeds children. And I saw, you know, a lot of comments, you know, about that where the women were like, "Oh, I'm feeding my children first, you know, this is that and the other," you know, and it's that question of who comes first. But if the roles were reversed, and men very very rarely talk about who you gonna feed first. Normally, it's who you gonna answer to first when it comes to men. Right. So are you gonna be okay if your husband answers to your child first? Or answers to his mama first. So that's the same thing. It's a different scenario, but it's the same principle. And I saw some women that were like,
but you know where that comes from? That comes from
even some men. I'm sorry.
That comes from the thought process of love flows down.
Right.
God, man, woman, child.
Right.
And that was a whole argument about the man would never be loved. A woman would never love a man as much as she loves her children, because they're saying the love flows down. God, man, woman, children. So in that structure, man. They're saying you're basically saying men loves everybody unconditionally that's under him, where that love doesn't flow upward, which is a weird and asinine way of saying that men are conditioned to where, like, we're supposed to just accept whatever we get when it comes to love from women, from everybody else.
That is not true.
Right. But that's the whole thought process when I saw that structure, that love flows down. Like, that doesn't make sense. I want you to, that means, like, the only person you should know that's going to love you is God, and everybody else, you just, whatever you get from them is what it is. Like, women are not going to love you the way God would love you, or the way your mother would love you, because that love flows down from your mother when you're thinking about the structure of it all.
I just don't understand why is there such an issue with women. And I also saw a man who said he would not respect a woman who wouldn't feed their children before they fed their man. I saw that too.
But sir, I paid for that food. This man paid for that food. This man went to the work, provided and supported the household to be able to feed those people. So, yeah, I need to get me first.
Well, I feel like, again,
but once again, that
according to your relationship.
Yeah, but that also comes into play where society, things are dominant. The most of these things are male dominated thought process. Right. So,
I mean, as a female, for me, I'm a southern raised woman.
And also a different thing too, you have to realize who you're talking to, because where you were raised makes a difference.
We are a nurturing set of women, most of us in the South. If you were raised in the South, you were raised where men were talking and kicking back at family gatherings and women were bringing plates to them. It's just what it is. It's kind of natural. You don't even think about it. It's just repetition, it's tradition, or whatever you want to call it. You've seen it all your life and you just pick up and do it. You don't even think about it.
Right, because I can recall being at an event that her aunt was about to knock her block off because she didn't get up and feed me.
Right.
Like I was sitting there like it's time to eat, like and waiting on her to come fix my plate, and she doing other stuff, and her auntie looked at me like, "What you waiting on, baby?" I said, "I'm hungry." She said, "You hungry, baby?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm about to get up and get it." She said, "No, you not. Kynisha, you better get over here. Nate, you better get over here and fix this man plate." And but in the South, that's how we're raised. That's a role thing. Like that's
women these days are, some women, not all women, let me not give it that. A lot of women are fighting hard to break that. I don't know why. I have no idea why, but a lot of women are fighting hard to break that.
Y'all can't, well, you can see, but on the audio, you're not going to.
Yeah.
See, I got my hand up.
What's that?
Okay, this is shout out to my friend Shane at Glam Hustle, my Wody. My Wody says this all the time. She says, I can't stand these independent itches. Mm-hmm. Because what y'all have done is made it hard for us women who don't mind being a housewife or who don't mind having a part-time job at the boutique or whatever, mm-hmm. just to add to something to the house, who don't have a problem with a man taking care of them, being that strength, being that strong one. That's the way I was designed as a woman, to be nurturing, to be supportive, to be a good mother, to be a helpmate, right. To bring my whatever percentage of it is into this relationship, to add to this man, to make him better. His weaknesses, I'm his strengths, blah, blah, blah. I'm here to be the yin and the yang. But you independent broads who ain't got a tap of sense when it comes to what it means to be a woman outside of what you're seeing on TV, which is unrealistic for the majority of people. And they're like, she's like, I can't stand y'all itches. And she goes off whenever that comes up. And I'm not saying that you should be, if you want to be a housewife, I want you to put this into perspective. And you want the man to pay for everything, support everything when it comes to bills, household, that structure, and all you want to do is be home, take care of the kids. Now, being a housewife, when you don't have kids, is I don't understand this thing that y'all bringing up. If you don't have kids, I'm not understanding the housewife thing. I'm not understanding
just housewife, not house mother.
Just being, because part of being a housewife is being a mother. That was the structure at that time. But anyway, if that's who you want to be,
not the structure.
Anyway, but if that's who you want to be, because I'm trying to keep you going off the rails, and you was going to let me.
I'm not going to let you.
If that's what you want to be, and that's who you are, then you have to realize that as that woman, you have to make sure you guys live within that income that man is making if you don't want to work. So you can't be looking at the Joneses, right, and their two-income household and how they live, right, and put that type of pressure on that man, mm-hmm, to do this and to do that, to satisfy those things that you see out in somebody else's house.
Yeah.
You have to realize when these women were staying at home and taking care of the kids, things were different. Bread was 5 cents a loaf. You know what I'm saying? Bread was 5 cents a loaf, not $3 a loaf. You get that? And you have to understand, you have to live within the means of the income of that man that you've chosen to marry, within the confines of your means, in order for this to be successful. And that also means everything that he's not doing in that house, that means everything in the house is your responsibility. That means he makes the money, you need to make sure all the bills paid. You need to make sure the the house is clean. You need to make sure if he gets home at 5:33, at 5:32 they got food on the table and water. Like that's you making that face, but that becomes like if I'm supporting everything when it comes to keeping the roof over their head, the lights on, yard cut, all this, that means all that other household stuff that I'm not because I'm out here supporting that other way, and all you're doing is being home. That becomes your role because that's the choice you made, and you made that choice within the structure and the confines of how much money I make. Yeah,
because saying some misogynistic stuff up in there.
Why am I saying how is that misogynistic? Because I feel if it was the other way around, if I was a house husband and you were going out as the wife and you made all the money.
The word was if all you're doing is staying home. I gave it to you. See, I held it. Y'all saw me hold it. I didn't say that.
There you go. There you go, trying to take that. That's just like people taking the scripture, just losing that one sentence. You knew where I was going with it.
I know what you said.
Oh my God.
So what I'm saying,
we've been together too long for you to play that game. But go ahead, carry on.
What you said.
Carry on.
So what I'm saying is true. What you're saying is definitely true. Women need to understand what they're asking for when it comes to that type of lifestyle.
100%.
If you are going to be at home, kids or no kids, then you understand you work in the home and he works outside of the home where the money is coming in at. One or the other is not more valuable than the other is except for by monetary standard. And that is because your lights will be cut off if he ain't at work.
Right.
But your job inside the home, you have to work inside the home. He should not have a complaint of things that are not happening inside the home because you're not doing the things that you should be doing as the at-home worker. So I think that some of us do have a very grandiose idea from watching TV and all these things, and these people have funds that we don't have. So the stuff that we see, we can't necessarily get out there and get because you have to live within the confines of your means. If your husband makes $15 an hour, the heck you mean you don't want to cook tonight? What you mean we going out to eat tomorrow, today, last week, and all that? Like you can't do that.
Yeah, you have
like that. You got to cook.
You have
and maybe put some groceries, go buy you a meat package.
And even when it's just the two of y'all at $15 an hour, we have to plan.
We got to
like if we gonna go out, it's gonna be once a month.
I don't care if your friends go out to get their nails done every week and you won't go with them. No, you can't do that.
You get you a little spot at the boutique, drive the school bus in the middle of the day while he at work or something.
I mean, you
look
just have
at the school
to
bus drivers right now. It's a struggle.
For a lot of stuff right now. A lot of jobs are hiring, okay? But it's just a thing whereas we can't take for granted, what the other person is doing. Without we do need to acknowledge what the other person is doing and what they're bringing to the table, but you also have to make sure you are doing your part. Whatever that is. If you're working outside the home, great. On that note, fellas, if you have a wife that is working outside the home, don't be sitting up there expecting her to be the wife you thought of back in the day. That's not fair. As he said earlier, wrongly, by the way, as he said earlier, that the precept back in the day was if you're at home, if you're a housewife, then you have children. No, that was not the precept. The precept was a man that finds a wife takes care of a wife. Period. You are the provider. Period. You ain't got her, you take care of her. That was the precept. And when the extra people come along that you create, you take care of them too. So, and then she becomes the pioneer of the home.
Yeah,
by way of, my turn.
When we're growing our own, whatever.
Kill it. So, you said it wrongly. I'm pointing it out. So what I'm saying is, What I am saying is, you went who you cannot afford. Therefore, when she's out helping you meet, don't be expecting her to carry on and do all the things that a house worker would be doing. She is not the pioneer of the home. She pioneering the job. Then she has to come home and pioneer the home. And at that point, roles need to be shared. And I think a lot of marriages and couples fall apart because you all aren't figuring out what roles we're going to share. You don't get to determine on your own, that is, that I don't do this and I don't do that. No, that's a conversation for the two of you to decide. In this household, I don't wash clothes. My husband washes clothes. In this household, I don't pump gas. My husband pumps gas. I have to pump gas every now and then. I have a meltdown about it. It is what it is, but I'm just saying my husband pumps the gas. But in this household, my husband don't clean toilets and tubs. He don't wash dishes. Every now and then, if I'm cooking, in the midst of things, he'll be in the kitchen with me. We'll be, having enjoying each other's company, that type of thing. In this household, my husband has done about 10% of the overall cooking. And that's because I'm not here. If I'm in the house, he ain't cooking nothing. In this household, he don't wash my car. I wash my own car. Because if my window streak up, it is what it is. So that's this household. You all have to sit down and talk about the roles that you all are going to play within your relationship. And it should not be, I ain't doing no. It is a compromised effort. You all have to decide what I'm going to do. Then you hold each other to that. And just because he ain't feeling it and he can't wear the clothes don't mean I let him pile up to the ceiling. You have to help meet is the word.
And it's both of us. We others help. Yeah. And I think people miss that point too. We are each other's help meet. Yeah. Especially now because things are so expensive. Most people are too in households. And if you're financially well that you're not,
bless you.
And the fact, and at that point, you still have to define roles.
Right.
Like I was, it was a Facebook post last week has to be last week, about bills in a marriage. Bills be 50-50. And I said to myself, if both people in the house are working, I'm gonna tell y'all something, and it's probably gonna make some people feel uncomfortable. There's no such thing as 50-50 in a marriage. There's actually no such thing as 100% in a marriage. Someone is always going to be giving a little bit more, even if it's 51-49. You thought you was about to give it like Fred, huh?
It's 55-50. Sometimes it's 55-50.
Sometimes it's 55-50. But someone is always going to be giving a little more, even if it's like I said, 149, in different aspects of the relationship. Right. Not saying in the overall relationship it's going to be 51-49. Some aspects of the relationship is going to be 80-20, 90-10. Right. It just depends on what it is. Right. So if we're going to use this for instance, and I don't mind saying this, for the most part, my wife makes more money than me because of what she does. You know what I'm saying? So in my mind, my structure as far as the jobs I get jobs that will allow me to do the things to take care of. My thought process at work is this is my process. I have to make the money to do this. The mortgage is my responsibility. Period. I've always thought when I'm working, I need to be making the money to make sure this roof stays over our head. You know what I'm saying? So she makes money. Like we have bills in our house, and we don't go about the process of you pay all the bills, Corey, because you're the man of the house. What we do is we split these bills up. This is and decide who pays what bill, and it's not even based on who makes more money. It's based on the structure of how the bill comes in. Like my wife get paid weekly. Yeah. I get paid bi-weekly. Yeah. So her bills are based on when she gets paid, how she gets paid, what's due and who's gonna pay it. That's how we do that. We have separate accounts.
We used to not.
We used to not, and that yeah. And we learned that Corey's not good with a joint account.
Corey's not good with a joint account.
But don't y'all get it twisted. Corey's good with the money. Corey's just not good with a joint account. So we couldn't do that. And some houses are good with it.
And hey, to highlight that, understand your weakness. Don't be getting upset when your weakness is pointed out by your spouse.
Right.
They are supposed to do that. They're not supposed to do it disrespectfully.
Disrespectfully and with ill will or
right.
discontent.
They ain't supposed to use it to beat you over the head with it. But they are supposed to be able to tell you, bro, you messed that up. And you are not supposed to be all haughty and in your feelings, feeling like you can't be told or critiqued or criticized that, you messed that up. You need to be able to say, I messed that up.
Yeah, because I will tell y'all, the cable has gone out in the middle of a TV show regularly because that was her bill. And she will forget every month. We'll be laying in the bed at 10:30 at night watching in the middle of something good.
TV ain't went off in many, many years. So you remember the boys they used to go across the screen? Yeah, that ain't happened in a long time. The TV has gone off at our house many nights.
And in the middle of the show, right at the climax, the TV just cuts off. And I just look, and she'd be like, oh. So guess what?
That's not your bill no more.
Yes, it is. It's still your bill. She just doesn't pay it. Like, I make sure it gets paid.
That's not your bill no more.
Like, I pay all the household bills. Even if it's her bill to pay, I pay all the household bills. Unless it's something that's automatically drafted.
The household accountant.
I am the household accountant. We've established that because she has a mind frame that I know it's in the bank. I'm not worried about it. I'll pay when I think about it. And pay when I think about it became pay when it got cut off.
Just the cable.
Just the cable. No lights or the water ever got cut off, thank God. But I'm just saying.
I don't understand how you talking about me in front of these people. But anyway.
Because you would do me the same. We're just giving an example.
We just want people to understand. We've been married 15 years now. Together 17. It just doesn't make sense that relationships fold under things that are so easy to structure.
Right.
Relationships, marriages, long-term relationships, live-in situations, whatever it is you are in, it needs structure. It has nothing to do with me telling you what to do or you telling me what to do. It's that we have to be able to tell each other what to do.
And we have to be able to function within
each other.
And it's always adaptable. Don't think because this is the role that you were assigned in the beginning of the relationship that this is always going to be your role.
Correct. Things change.
Things change. You have to adapt. Finances change. Household change. Children change. Like before,
you become empty nesters.
Before Nyla, got school age, I didn't really participate in going to, PTO meetings and conferences and all that. But then Nyla came along, and then at that point, she changed the job she was working. She went from being self-employed, her own schedule, to teaching. So at this point now, I gotta go pick up kids, drop kids off, go to conferences, make sure kids are doing homework. That wasn't my role at one point.
Yeah,
and we had to adapt and adjust.
I think what should happen, great home plate, not homework, home plate. Great thing to do. Y'all switch roles for about a week. See if that'll help you appreciate one another a little bit more.
Fellas, don't y'all take that stress. Just hug that woman and tell her you appreciate the things she do. Don't y'all take that stress.
Switch roles for a week. Ooh, 2. Not 1, 2. Switch roles.
Because you could, 2 weeks. Because you could probably get away with it for a week. You could swing a week.
Switch roles for 2 weeks in the house. Yeah, of course you can't switch jobs. So switch roles for 2 weeks. I promise you, you will have a different outlook on your spouse, and you will be able to appreciate that person a little bit more, or a lot more, depending on your situation, and you will then be able to effectively compromise.
Right.
And there is a difference between compromise and effective compromise.
Right.
Because a lot of people compromise, but somebody at the end of the day is pissed off.
Without a doubt.
Effectively compromising is being able to come to the table. Both of y'all leave pissed off. Because you all don't get, you know what I'm saying?
You know what? You not read the comments.
I can't see. Put it on the screen. Share it for us.
Oh my God. Let me, I'm sorry, y'all. Let me pop up some of these comments because we get comments from all over every avenue.
Both people should walk away from the table pissed off in an effective compromise. It's like a good business deal.
Right.
Nobody leaves with 100% of what they wanted. If somebody leaves with 100% of what they wanted, there was no compromise. There was a conquering.
Right.
And there should not be any conquering in your relationship. It's 2 people coming together as one. So we need to effectively compromise. Both of us should walk away not getting everything we want.
Somebody say clean the house and cook. Let's go. That sounds good until you have to cook every day and clean every day. And especially
you walk in the house and you just wash dishes and you come back and the dishes dirty again and all this other stuff. Yeah.
Somebody say as long as we don't have to switch her cycles. I can agree with that. She can keep that cycle. Yeah, we don't want that.
What?
They say as long as we don't have to switch, she don't have to switch her cycles.
As in the female cycle?
Yeah.
I wish.
I think that I'm gonna assume that's what they say mean when they say cycles. They can make it clear for us.
I wish.
So I say I always leave with winning because when I lose, I still win. Hey.
At the end of the day, it should be like that.
It should be. The compromise should be that both of you feel like you got something out of it.
Yeah, like you're going to both lose, but you're going to both win.
If not, even if both of us take the L, we both took the L. You didn't walk away like I won this, like this. See, and that's one thing you shouldn't be doing in a relationship. Competing with your spouse. Yeah. And so
I don't want to ever be like he loves me more than I love him, or he takes better care of me than I do. Like that should not be a thing. That should never be a conversation. That shouldn't be a feeling.
Even though I said it's never going to be 50-50, you shouldn't feel like it's 90-10 when it comes to certain things, or 95-5 for some people.
55-50?
That
I'm just saying, it's effective compromise. Women, y'all are bad. Y'all, I'm straight. Y'all bad. Y'all are bad with effective compromise. And it's an emotional thing. It's because women are emotional.
And the men are thinking logically. We're thinking logically about the situation. We're really not putting as much emotion into this, even in roles. We're not putting emotion into it. That
makes y'all bad at it too, though. Because you're not thinking emotionally.
Because you're not thinking emotionally. But, hey, we think that we're doing this because this makes the most sense structurally, logically. This makes the most sense. Yeah. So that's how we're thinking about it. And a lot of times when women are like, emotionally, I'm thinking emotionally. It makes me feel good, or it makes me feel bad. Because for the most part, women fall in love with how a man makes them feel. And men fall in love with women for how they make them feel, but also the structure that they give the man. Like, so it's And you have to think about these things when you're going into relationships.
Yeah.
Male or female, you have to
I
understand.
think fell in love with me because I wasn't easy. And that very thing that he fell in love with is sometimes probably what makes him want to punch a hole through the wall. It is what it is.
Just grab her by her neck.
But I'm just saying.
Because at times she's too bossy. She's too independent.
Leo season.
And Leo season is about to be brushed out of here. But and that's just what it is. Like her biggest thing I would think was like, okay, the security, the protection. But I've always been even keeled. Like I don't get too high, I don't get too low. Logically, functionally, I'm always here. So I'm never an emotional roller coaster.
It drives me.
And it drives her crazy because it's things
not that he has to be a roller coaster, but it's certain things that I feel like it's turn up time. You're supposed to be like raring and flipping out, and he's just like,
I'm here like, okay. I'm thinking of the logical, like somebody. I'm thinking of like.
Let me tell y'all.
I'm bringing.
Let me tell y'all what this man just recently told me. He told me.
I can't even get my point.
You can't have your point because it just brought something in. It sparked something in my spirit.
Chase, get your friend.
And my spirit, the man told me.
Because
I said I was about to cut up on a certain day not long ago. I just made 40 years old, y'all. So they tell me I'm like really too grown to do certain things. But
really too grown.
I was about to really do some things at 40 years old, and he told me he was gonna leave me in jail.
Leave her there? I just let her lay down for a day or two. Just a day or two. Because you have to understand.
That was my off the rails moment for the day because he did tell me.
You were 40 years old. And you shouldn't be acting like that at 40 years old. So if it ain't nothing, if it ain't something somebody doing to these kids, that's right, Black Ice. If it ain't something somebody doing to these kids, we're adult enough to keep it moving. See, y'all, this 40-year-old petty, this 40-year-old petty, Jesus, this humbuggers at 40, this don't make no sense. Renelle, it's never a good time to the compromise wasn't her going to jail. What she was about to do was gonna get her put in jail. So it wasn't a compromise. She earned that sit down. She earned that time.
But that don't mean you
on General Isaac. I wasn't gonna leave you.
Said you was gonna leave me there for a few days.
Yeah, because it was the weekend.
It was Sunday.
Yeah, I wasn't finna be.
Monday was the next day.
Yeah, well, you got out the next day, but you wasn't getting out that night.
Well, that's because I can't get out on a Sunday.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, we needed to cool off.
Leave me there for a few days, y'all. I was like, okay.
A few days. 2 days, man.
All right.
She go on a Sunday, she get out Tuesday. Come on.
Y'all know they wasn't gonna work out. This would have been a whole different type of episode. But anyway, back on the track. I think that a lot of us, effective compromise is a big deal. Nobody should walk away feeling 100% vindicated in any compromise.
Right.
In your relationship, that is. Every compromise in your relationship should be constructed like a great business deal. You know, good business deals, nobody ever walks away 100% with what they want. And that should be the same thing for your marriage or for your relationship or whatever it is that you're in. You need to understand that you can't have your way 100%. That is not okay. That's not fair.
That is not adult at all. That is childish.
It is.
Immature.
It is.
Spoiled and selfish.
It is. Agreed.
Okay.
So when it comes to that, even you yes men and yes women, y'all need to kill it.
That's a whole nother story, yes men and yes women. That's a whole nother episode. Because I see a lot of men and women.
The resentment.
That build resentment in their relationships because they won't stand up and say no. Or have a backbone to say no. Or have the security in their relationship to be like, no, this is not what it is.
If you are dealing with someone who can't be told no, run away. I every now and then I'm gonna tell you when to run.
This one I can agree on.
If you can't deter from that precept of what you think a marriage is, run away. If you can't deal with somebody that can't be told no from time to time, run away. Put your heelys on so you can run and slide and glide away. Get it, get a good running start and then glide, because you need to move on. Like, there should not be, no woman should feel great because her man or spouse gives her 100% everything she wants. You don't have a man. You don't have a partner who has the strength that they should have, because it's not ever a time, speaking of roles, it's not ever a time where one partner should be always giving what you want. Because what you want sometimes ain't what you need.
To come in and say, nah, it gotta be yes, daddy.
Right? Nah. You can't, like, you should feel, if you're dealing with a spouse, male or female, who is completely contented with you giving over everything to them, you should feel abused.
Yeah.
And if you don't feel abused, I'm telling you, you should feel abused.
This is the moment where we're giving psychological evaluations without a degree or so let me put in this disclaimer.
No psychological science.
This is not medical or psychological advice. This is just our observations. This is just opinions. Use it as you will.
Before y'all come jumping over here on us talking about my man don't. Okay.
Whatever.
Getting that noise. So what I'm saying is, you all should be able to give, like Corey said earlier, some things, certain aspects of the relationship, you may give more. And then you'll look at the other side of it and be like, I don't do as much of that as they do. And that is a healthy relationship. It shouldn't be that you're going to do this, that, and that. We have to define the roles within our relationship according to the person. Don't tell your husband that he is going to be the provider and the bill payer if he sucks at finances. Like, that is not his thing. That ain't what he do. Let him go make some money.
But my provider part is not when made the money.
But they got people who go to work and still don't come home with the money.
See, that's a whole different. Right? Monster.
Yeah, that's a different. They got people that do that.
Yeah,
before they get home, they done went bought some the nicest, freshest set of Jordans and things. They come home and already spent $200 on that set of Jordans, them two in the box, them things. And then you come and give me the rest of the check. Like, what?
That's not what we talking about.
But it's a thing.
But they do that.
It's a thing.
We're not.
Like, that's the man you have to say, baby, your check needs to be direct deposit. And you don't need a debit card. I'm going to give you some cash. And then don't worry about the rest. I'm going to give you some cash. Use your weekly allowance or your monthly allowance or however that goes.
And for some people, that works. That's the way it has to be.
You don't need to get your check yourself. Because
that's the way it has to be.
You ain't know the turnovers due this week before you walk in the house with that double pack of Jordan. Like, no? Oh, okay. All right.
So, yeah. But if you can afford the double pack of Jordan and it don't affect your bills, then that don't matter. But, yeah, that's something else. That's a whole nother issue.
It's a role.
It's a role, yeah. But, fellas, you are the protector. Protector, provider. Role. Wife, you are the nurturer. What's the other word?
I don't know, but that don't work here.
You are nurturing.
I am.
What do you mean?
I feel like we do all the roles with both of us.
Yeah, I'm just saying in general.
Yeah.
The way women and men are wired, you're naturally a nurturer.
Yeah.
Men have to work on it a lot of times. Yeah. So
I think that a lot of marriages or long-term relationships, we get caught up in, first of all, a lot of us are getting married, having a wedding, and not ready for the marriage. So Some of us just aren't ready for the role we are assuming, and a lot of us have not discussed the role we are assuming before we jump into it.
And y'all, let's not get it twisted. Let's not think that day one that you're gonna know and understand all this, even if you have a discussion. This is a process. This is a daily, consistent work. Some things you're gonna know up front.
Yeah,
like you're gonna discuss
and you're somebody long enough. Yeah, you've been watching what they've been doing on their own.
Yeah,
you kind of can say.
But a lot of times people are so caught up in the infatuation of being in love that they don't always see things with dark shades. They see it with rose-colored glasses. Okay. You don't have your lokes on all the time. Right. A lot of times they have on their rose-colored glasses. And when you get in a relationship and you take those off and you put them lokes on when it was thugging time now, then you realize, wait a minute.
No thugs over here. It is
like the TikTok. Have y'all seen this TikTok? I'm going off. If y'all seen this TikTok or this video or whatever it's on, where the guy is carrying his girl on his back through the water. What is that?
That's a big video of somebody.
Whatever it was, the video. This man is carrying his wife on his back through the water, through the flood waters.
His girl,
wife, whatever. And he's struggling. But he trying. He working hard. He trying to get them across that water to the dry land. Mm-hmm. Anybody who knows anything about water that's flowing downstream, it will humble you immediately. That water hit them. He lost his balance. They both fell. The water rolling her down the street.
Both of them.
The both of them. But as a man, he's still trying to be strong. He's still trying to protect. Okay. He's still trying to grab, pick her up, save her. And they lose it again. But then they get to a point where he stands her up and the water's not as deep and it's not as flowing as fast. And she's panicked and she jumped up swinging and pushing and punching. Me, myself, at this point, I'm finna let that water take you again. Because you just disrespected my effort. And then that's when some other guy comes in, picks her up with one arm, throws her over his shoulders, and walks her out the water. But at that whole time, that man who had her on his back, he's still trying to make sure she's all right, even though another man is carrying her out of the water. This happens in relationships. This is a good metaphor for relationships.
Did good with that one. That was awesome.
Of how the water gets deep, gets rocky, you fall over, we fall over, we get up and we fall again. I don't want to talk about the man part because then we get into the other man carrying her, because then we get into another realm of relationship of somebody not being able to do their part. But I'm going to bag it up to the beginning of this clip, to whereas he shouldn't have been carrying her across that water. They should have been hand in hand, side by side, with structure supporting each other across that water. Balancing her, his way balancing her. He should have been on the side where the water was coming. She should have been on the opposite side to where he's taking on the grunt of the force, but she's there for him to lean on so they don't fall over and they can walk across this river together. And that's how your marriage should be. It should not be one of you carrying the other, and then both of you end up falling because the weight of trying to carry someone through a difficult situation is heavy. But I know a lot of people will take that from that video. They just gonna see the fall and the man that picks her up and saves her, and they gonna call that man weak.
He really didn't say,
because they were in the shallow part of the water. Like people are really pushing that deeper than it was, because they were in the shallow part of the water. All she had to do was turn around and walk her ass to the bank. But this is what I'm saying. The weight of carrying her in that difficult situation topping them over. It was too much. It was too much. It was too much on his shoulders. And that's not how a relationship should be.
I blame the school systems because see, kinetic energy flows the way the water was. Yeah, he shouldn't have. Okay.
Yeah, but we're not gonna get into the side of the
But
side. But the side by side is
that was
strength
an awesome
together.
metaphor for marriage because it should never be save me, save me.
Never.
You know, it should never be save me in a marriage. Let us do this thing together.
Right.
You know, if you are in a marriage and you have to constantly save your spouse, y'all need to go to counseling and figure out why this person can't stand.
Why is this always?
You gotta stand on your own. Because these two should have been standing together, linked up tight.
On and like.
But why can't you stand? Why do I have to carry you? You know, it's not my role. It's nobody's role. Of all the roles we've discussed tonight, not one time did we say be a mule. Do not carry anybody. That is not your job. It's not your job to carry. It's your job to support, but it's not your job to carry. So if you are in a relationship before marriage, get some counseling before you get into that so you can stand on your own and then stand alongside. If you are in a marriage and you are constantly carrying the other individual in a tough spot, y'all need to go to counseling and figure out why can't you stand? Why do I always have to be the one to carry you? Because the weight of that situation is going to cause some problems, both physically and mentally, because your mental health and your psychological and emotional health can mess up your physical health. For real. Stress kills, no doubt. So you can't, sacrifice yourself to keep pushing somebody else up. It's like the person that's trying to save somebody from drowning and you getting them out the water, but they standing on your shoulders pushing you down in the water. Right. Like, you're killing me.
All right. Your relationship has to be a us against the world type of mindset. We're here together, supporting one another. Mm-hmm. I'm feeding into the energy you need because you don't have that energy. It's an energy flow. It's a back and forth, yin yang. It's a circle. It's a cycle, and we keep that circle going. Like people show the ring, the symbolism of the ring and the circle of the ring together, never ending. That's what this process is in marriage. It's a never ending cycle of growth, support, protection, nurturing, adapting.
Sometimes the roles change.
And sometimes the roles change in that circle, but y'all still in that same circle. Right. It's still that same infinite circle where it's connected and you've made that agreement. You've made that covenant. I want people to really understand that marriage is a covenant. It isn't a contract. That's a difference between a covenant and a contract. If you don't know the difference, pull out your dictionary.com. Yeah. Look it up. There's a difference between a covenant and a contract. And when you go into marriage, you go into covenant, especially if it's a Christian-based marriage or whatever your religion is. And in most religions, it's the covenant is between you, your spouse, and God. And I want to, on this note, we're gonna. I think this is a good spot to end. But we're also gonna say on this note, you folks, when y'all go to these marriages, these weddings, and these people say, is there anybody here who think these two people should not be married? That really isn't for somebody to stand up and be like, yeah, it is, but it kind of holds another element to it that you or who are all in attendance in that moment, you're entering into that covenant to help support those two people who are coming together before God. That's part of what's going on in that marriage. Pastors in that wedding. Most pastors don't really Throw that out there for y'all. It's a few that's gonna let you know this, but you're part of that covenant when you're in that ceremony and you agree to these things. That's not saying you're supposed to be in these people's marriage and their affairs and their business or none of that. But you are supposed to be there with a village mentality to support, encourage, and nurture that covenant and that commitment to one another. In other words,
if you ever went to a wedding and those people divorced and you never offered anything to the support of that marriage, that's on you. Part of that is on you. You have a responsibility to every couple you watch and the growth and go and stand and be a witness. You are being a witness to a union. And a lot of us,
I bet y'all gonna stop running all these weird names.
A lot of us did not learn or have not been taught what a marriage ceremony is. Right. Now, we just want 500 people there because we want everybody to spectate and see how beautiful we are. Mm-hmm. But understand that historically speaking, from the foundation up, a wedding is a ceremony of a village of people coming together to support this union. And that's why it's always asked, or it used to be, because sometimes they don't even ask no more with these weddings, because legally, if somebody stands up and say, I object, they have to stop the wedding.
At that point.
They have to stop the wedding. The clergy is required to stop the wedding. So they stopped even putting that out there at a lot of these weddings. But you are there saying, I personally believe that these two people should be married
into this covenant. And that's why it used to be, if you go back into research your African heritage, that's why weddings were done the way they were. That's why the ceremonies were the way they were, because it was that village coming together to support the union of two people. A lot of times, like I said earlier, it was to support two kingdoms coming together to end a war, whatever. But the foundation of that was for the support and nurturing and covering of that union. And you had a role by being a witness. Like they've gotten now to where you get your two witnesses, legal witnesses to sign. Now you two people who sign, y'all really in there deep, but that's going somewhere else. So we just want you guys, in the end, to understand that these marriage roles that society has put and told you this is the way the household should move or function or work. This is what a wife does in the house. This is what a man does in the house. That's some BS. You do what works within the confines and structure and sanity and release of stress in your household. What is work through your strengths, their strengths, make those roles your role. Whatever you're strong at, that's your role.
And don't get in these marriages thinking that they're going to be able to magically do something they were never able to do before.
Right.
Just because you got married. Like,
if I couldn't count before,
married,
I ain't
gonna count. She gonna start cooking more.
The lies you preach.
When we get married, he'll pick his clothes up.
The lies you preach.
Yeah, no, that ain't gonna. No, you bought it. You bought it the way it was. This is an as-is purchase.
Yes, sir.
So your roles need to be defined before you get married. And if you are married and you have not yet defined the roles, maybe y'all need to come together, because it'll save you a whole lot of heartache and fussing and arguing if you come together and say, look, I am strong at this. This is what I can do. Stop expecting me to do this. I can't do it. I'm not good at it. For whatever reason, stop expecting that of me.
The first time
this is what I can do.
The first time I burned one of her pots, she understood. I told you I can't cook. You ain't gonna talk me through it over the phone or video chat or none of that. I told you this is not what I do. So
yes.
With that being said,
I quickly stopped letting him dig down and scrape off my flat. I'm just trying to say. But please, by all means, I think at least once every show, we say the same thing. Sit down and talk about it.
Talk it out.
There's no reason that you should know your spouse's strengths according to them. Not according to you, but according to them. Like, and then if I sit down and say, I'm strong at this, and you've been observant and you're like, no, you're not, then that needs to be a conversation.
Yeah, a deep, in-depth conversation, because we're obviously not seeing this the same way.
Don't just be coming because you just feel like, because it's going to be an argument. Let's just clear that up right here, right now. If you get there and that person says, well, I'm really good at this, and you're like, you're really not, I want you to sit down and say, no, because remember this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. You didn't do well with none of those. Like, not to be petty, not to be disrespectful, but just to say, no, babe, really think about it. That you don't perform well at this point.
That wasn't.
Because maybe they don't realize that they don't perform well. They really thinking that they did great. I'm just saying, we got to be able, when it comes to roles in a marriage or in a relationship, we have to be able to be honest with ourselves and with our significant other. Whether that's all peaches and cream or whether it's all coal and brimstone, you got to be able to go through both of them. You got to be able to do it. So nobody wants to hear what they're not good at, and nobody wants to hear, when they're wrong or hear no or whatever the case may be, but it is needed in a healthy relationship.
So
you got to do it.
So on that note, we're going to say good night.
Good night.
Thank y'all for joining us. Please join us next week.
Next week?
Yeah. Next week.
He said it.
Next week.
I hope y'all got something out of this. Once again, this is just our experience talking, the things we've gone through, the things we worked through and maneuvered through and came through, on the other side. And things we've seen other people, like a lot of this. Sometimes our podcast gonna be like Usher's Confessions CD, where he said it wasn't all that wasn't him. It was things he saw with his friends,
and all that kind of stuff.
So that's what the podcast is gonna be about. And we welcome your input. We welcome your thoughts. Please email us at passiveforperfect@gmail.com if you have something past this moment that you want to discuss. You can inbox us on our actual Facebook page, message us or whatever. I think you can message us on YouTube as well. So Passive for Perfect with Corey and Kynisha on YouTube. Share it.
Like, share, subscribe.
Passive for Perfect on Facebook. So you can definitely message us if you have some content you want us to talk about. We like getting things from people and discussing that. So thank y'all for joining us again. We hope that this has been, Corey usually, starts and finishes. So
at the very least, we hope it helps somebody. It was an education for y'all learn something.
That
if not, we
have no licensing.
If the only thing if the only thing that you learned was that y'all better stop going to these just random weddings.
Because you want to see what she had on. Wait on the Facebook pictures.
Right.
Yeah.
And with that, I would like to say good night, Gracie.
I don't like that. I keep telling him I don't like that. I don't like that.
I love it.
And if I go to jail, y'all better come get me.
Y'all ain't like that show growing up?
Y'all come get me.
Good night, Gracie. Next week, we will discuss how religion and the male dominance of sexuality is affecting sex in relationships with women, men, so forth and so forth.
I don't know why that's a thing, because people say Christian women are the biggest freaks.
So
I don't know what the hell is with all that.
That's a lie. We're gonna discuss next week. We're gonna discuss that next week.
Freaks. I don't.
Good night, y'all.